I know people, it's nobody in the audience, who have no time to have a deep conversation with their loved ones. I know people, it's obviously not you, who have no time to spend on their hobbies and to do things they enjoy doing. I know people, maybe you know them too, who have no time to smile at a stranger in the street or say a kind word to a cashier. They all are so busy thinking about the future that they forget about the present. I remember that I had this feeling of not having time either. As I lived in Poland, preparing to move to Germany, what I did as I was 19 on my own with just one suitcase, I remember learning days and nights German while my friends were having fun, meeting each other, going for a party or just watching a movie, which I didn't do. And eventually, as I went to Germany, I still didn't have time because I had to work harder because of the language barriers. And I was involved in this topic so much that I wrote and dedicated my diploma thesis to this topic. And I realized that in Germany, I'm seen as a very laid-back, easygoing, spontaneous, last-minute person, whereas the same me in Poland is seen as a very structured, organized, disciplined, and planning ahead. I was so involved into this topic that, as you've already heard, it happened to be 128 pages what I wrote about how different cultures deal with time in a different way. Even if only 30 were inquired. And some of you, as our introductors would say, it was a waste of time. But for me, it was life-changing. And I took the insight I had during my research to the international companies, and I still help them to work in international teams and knowing how to do project management all over the world. So, due to the time limitations, only 80 minutes, I'm going to share with you 3 main culture differences which I think might support you to deal with time in a different way so that you have the feeling that you experience a lot of time. How many of you in the last week has the feeling that you don't have enough time? Wow. So time seems to be very rare and expensive. We've heard many times, time is money. I claim time is happiness. Imagine a successful manager or a busy doctor. They don't want to have more clients or more patients or more contracts. They just want to have more time. And there are people all over the world who seem to have all time in the world, even if we agreed to have 24 hours a day. But what if time was invented by people and there was no such thing like time? Actually, Einstein claimed that time was created by human beings. Consider what we call a day. A day is a time our planet needs to circle to do a complete revolution. And we divided it into 24 pieces, which makes an hour. We could do 10 or 60. We just did it randomly. So it's what we all agree on the planet. There are still some nations which don't even have the word time in their language. So if they want to meet, they just say, oh, let's see each other when the sun goes down or when the cows are feeding, something like that. Because in our Western world, we see time as a line, mostly as a line which goes up to symbolize that there is a progress. But normally, we have just one date after another, and it won't repeat, and you can't go back either. Whereas in Asian countries, which are influenced by, let's say, religions like Buddhism or Hinduism, they see time more like a circle or maybe a spiral. So for them, if something doesn't happen today, it will happen tomorrow. If not this week, then let's say we'll do it next week. If not this summer, then next summer, and if not this life, then next life. So if you consider time as a circle or spiral, you seem to be much more relaxed because you don't have as much time pressure because, if you don't fulfill all your dreams in this life, you still have many, many chances to do it in the future. And this influences the speed of our life. And there are really very interesting studies. One of them was done by Professor Robert Levine, who went to 31 countries and compared 3 things. The first one was, how fast do people go in a pedestrian area? How long or short does it take to buy a stamp in a post office? And how exact the watches go in public places. You might ask yourself, it's a strange question, because in Germany, we are used to when you are at the airport that the watch you see at the first row will show the same time as the watch which you see at another area. Not in Brazil. He is telling a story as he was a guest lecturer in Brazil, and because it was the first time he went to the university there, he really left home at time so that he had enough time to get to the university. And as he was passing a bank and saw a watch, he almost got a heart attack because he was already half an hour late for the lecture. So he started speeding up and decided to take an underground to get one stop faster. And as he was at the underground station, he saw another watch and realized that he still has 2 hours time. So it's not as obvious that watches go and show the exact time all over the world, or at the same place. So to sum up, we could say that the West and the North have the watches, and the East and the South have the time. Another difference was in people in cultures focus on past, present, or future. Countries which pay attention to the past, they are very, very traditional. So they want to keep things as they have been doing for many times. Countries who focus for the future, they would sacrifice the present moment to have better future. For example, in Germany, I know people which in their 20s already think about what are they going to do when they retired. And they just postpone the dreams for, some future which you don't even know. And some countries somehow manage to be very, very present and focus and here and now. And there was an anecdote when a company who was having a factory in Congo, they decided to pay some kind of bonus at the end of the year to the local employees. And they were very surprised because the first 2 weeks in Germany, nobody came. Why did nobody came? Because the people there just realized that they have enough money, so there is no need to work. I won't encourage you to don't go to work if you have enough money on your bank account, but maybe we could learn something to be more present and to focus more on the present moment. We had a very, very delicious lunch break with some very, very unique international dishes. And I don't know how many of you took time to really enjoy and focus on this delicious taste. If you were eating on your own, maybe you just paid attention for that. But if you were having a conversation with your friends, probably you didn't enjoy it as much because you couldn't really realize the taste. It was just something somewhere else. And it brings us to the third difference, which is about the monochronic and polychronic culture. The monochronic culture just do one thing, and they start with the second one if they finish with the first one. Whereas the polychronic culture, they love to do many things at once. So imagine in Italy such a situation that there is a boss, and a German boss sitting in front of his wooden table, and he gets some visitors from Italy. And because they were late, he just started doing something else and having a phone call with another business partner. And the Italians just passed through the secretary. They weren't announced and appeared somehow suddenly in the middle of his room. In the best case, the German boss, who is very monochronic, he would just smile a little bit, finish his phone call, let's say it lasts 3 minutes, and then stand up and just say hello to the guest. The same situation, but if the boss was Italian, what would happen? So he would immediately say, oh, just wait a second, I'm getting a visitor. Oh, Federico, Alberto, how are you? Great to see you, great to see you. So it would be very much going on at the same time, and he wouldn't bother just to interrupt himself. So in our society nowadays, 21st century, we already realized that it's better to focus on one thing to be more efficient. And if we take it too seriously, it might happen that you miss opportunities which are around you. You just don't realize that they are there. Like American boss who was having just some work, and there was his Indian employee, IT specialist, who has just brilliant idea of how to improve some online sales, which would give the company additional millions of dollars. And the Indian IT specialist, because he is somebody from polychronic culture, so many things happen at once, he just walks into the door of the boss and very enthusiastic, sharing his great idea to the boss. And this American boss, Monochronic, would say, oh, wait a moment, I'm busy right now. Could we talk about it in the next meeting? Which would be offending to our Indian employee, because he feels like that this is like as if he was not important enough, and maybe he would just take the idea to another company just because there was a difference how you deal with time, if you do something just structured, one thing after another, or simultaneously. And I still remember my culture shocks as I came to Germany, and I was standing in a student office, and I was very excited to give the application so that I could study there. And it was something about 12 o'clock. The doors should close at 12, and I could see the woman in front of the glass door, and she was showing me that, no, now it's time for lunch break. And at that time, I took it very personally, because I thought that just maybe a couple of minutes are like more important than me. And sometimes in the beginning when I came to Germany, I also had this feeling when I once were rushing for a train, and I even saw a conductor at the door, so I just was happy that the door was still open, and he stand like this and said, we want to be on time, we want to leave on time. So he didn't let me into this train. So I was very surprised, and I thought, who is more important? A couple of minutes or a person? If you see like Mexican friends meeting at the corner, and they were just having a great conversation, and nobody would say, oh, sorry, I'm late for the meeting. They would rather talk and have this great conversation and being late for the meeting and not risking disturbing this atmosphere. So what can we learn from all these differences? One thing I would encourage you to do is to really focus and do what you think, what you want. If you get rid of all of these cultural influences and you stop doing what your family wants, what your friends consider to be right, what maybe your neighbors think it's good to do, and just really stick what your heart is feeling it's right, then suddenly you will get a lot of time because you will stop doing things which doesn't belong to you, but maybe to the society. And if you start appreciate the power of now as the cultures who live in the present, you will discover that you will experience of having more time. And there is a beautiful, beautiful sentence. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. And today is a gift. That's why they call it present. And this day right now is an anniversary, the second anniversary as my dear aunt died. And that's why I was thinking again about this situation. And 2 years ago, this happened. I was in US, in California, having another seminar. And because of the time difference, I was just sitting alone at the pool in a beautiful hotel, and suddenly I got this message from my sister saying that my aunt died. I decided not to go to the funeral, even if it was my beloved aunt, and she is the reason why I am in Germany, because I could spend 1 or 2 weeks during holidays as I was a child with her. I decided just to write a letter instead of flying back to funeral. And in this letter, I put all things I'm grateful for what she taught me. She taught me that it's important to live your truth. Doesn't matter what the people say. She taught me that it's important to take time to relax. She taught me that it's important to stay in touch with your friends. And she taught me that it's very important to contribute to the happiness of others. And I promised her in my letter that I will remember that one day I will die too. I want to be more aware of that because that's the only one sure thing in this world. And that helps us to use much more the time we are having, because the time we are having here is a gift, and that's what we can learn from another cultures. When I come back from countries which are not as developed as Germany, I start appreciate really, really tiny things. And instead, let's say at cash decks, instead of looking on my mobile phone, I prefer just to think in my head what I'm grateful for. So sometimes less is more. Even if I don't answer many emails or I won't look up what another friends are doing, I will feel this gratitude. And I do take time to say a kind word to the cashier. And in this way, we will make the world a better place because we use the time we are given. So as I already said, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why they call it present.